In this video I'm going to show you how to make this bracelet. But this bracelet is an updated version of these bracelets that I have on my beading mat. Shall we take a close look at the differences? So really, apart from the slight colour variation, the main difference is that these beads here are chip beads, which are 2-hole beads, and these beads here are 2-hole cabochons, also, as the name suggests, with 2 holes. Now, why did I do an updated version? Well, these chip beads, we do still have some in stock, but there are limited supplies left. And so I really did want to be able to show you how to make this, but I didn't want you to be frustrated with not having the exact supplies that you needed. So I took a hard look and discovered that these would work with a few modifications. So in this video, I'll be going step by step how to make this version of the bracelet, and at the end of the video I will cover the differences between this one, and they are quite minor as well. But if you'll notice that this makes a slightly smaller version. If we put them on top, you can just see very slightly smaller. Okay, so there we are. That's what we're going to be making, and each bracelet has a different variation of a clasp. Watch to the end and we'll see what we're going to do with that. We're going to make our first component of the Pohori bracelet. These are 2-hole cabochons. So if you put your needle through one hole, you can see that the holes are parallel through the 2-hole cabochon. Okay, and we always need to be picking them up the right way, and I'll get to that in a minute. Then we've got some check O beads, some super duos, some fire polished 4mm rounds, some size 11s and some size 15s. So let's start with the first round. We are going to pick up a 2-hole cabochon. We want to pick it up with dome side up and the hole closest to us. Okay. Then we are picking up a O bead, super duo and O bead. Then we want to pick up another 2-hole cabochon the same way. Okay. Don't pick it up for the outer hole, and it will become clear in a minute why. Then another set of O bead, super duo O bead, and the last cabochon, and in the same fashion, the hole nearest to you. So this is what we have so far, and we want one more set of O bead, super duo O bead. Then we're going to form a circle by going through all of these beads again. And this is when it becomes a bit clearer why you need to pick up that certain hole in that cabochon. Because when you bring it into this, well, we'll call it a circle or a triangle shape, and pull it tight, all the beads sit nicely together. But if you'd picked it up through the outer hole, it would flip the cabochon upside down when you pulled it tight like that. Okay, so that's the main thing to think about as you start. You don't need a long tail, just enough to weave in. Okay, so that's where we are right now. Then we are going to go to the outer hole of the cabochon, so you're sort of doubling back on yourself. and then we're going to do the next round. Here we're going to pick up and 11, super duo, O bead. Then we're going to go through the top hole of this super duo, the one that doesn't have anything in it at the moment. Then we're going to pick up the same but in reverse, so a O bead, super duo and size 11, and go through the top hole of the next cabochon. Now we're going to repeat that sequence. So it's a size 11 super duo O bead through the top hole of the super duo, O bead, super duo, size 11 through the top hole of the 2-hole cabochon. Then repeat it again. And didn't need to go through that extra size 11, just through here. So this is what we are looking at right now. That's your second round. Now we are going to come up to the top hole of the super duo. So just weave forward through the 11 and then top hole of the super duo. Then we're going to add a fire polish bead between these two super duos, this one and this one. But it's a bit of a big gap to stretch, so we're going to add a size 15 either side. Okay, so we have a size 15, a 4mm fire polish and another size 15. Then hop straight over to the super duo. Okay. Now we need to weave through the next few beads. So weave through the 11, top hole of the cabochon, the 11, and then jump to the top hole of the super duo. Once again, a 15, 4mm fire polish and a 15. Weave through to the next super duo. Add the final fire polished bead and 15s. Pass through the super duo. So that is your component made. Super quick, hey? You do need to weave in the ends. Because we are using several 2-hole beads here and beads with quite big holes, you will need to weave through quite a bit, and that will also firm up the component. But I will also add some half hitch knots to give it some extra stability and keep those ends in place. So you don't just have to weave through the outside, you can go down and weave into the beadwork. And as you do that, you'll also feel it firming up quite a bit. Going to go through this outside bit. Another half hitch knot. weave through until it is secure. Do that with the tail thread as well. Then you will need to make a certain number of these, and then we're going to join them up. But I would certainly start with making 6 or 7, even for a small wrist. You will need several of these. So make a few more and then come back for the joining instructions. I've made several components now, all exactly the same, but I know this won't be quite long enough for my wrist, but it's enough for us to get started joining them together. So we'll be joining them together with size 11s, and we're going to be joining them between the super duos. Okay, so we're going to be lining them up like this, where the cabochons are next to each other, the super duos are next to each other, and then the next one will be like this. Okay. While I was playing with these on my bead mat though, I had another great idea. You could make a matching pendant by joining them into a circle. It's really good to play with components sometimes and just see what ideas pop up. So have a go at making the pendant as well if you want. For now, I am going to weave in a new thread, and I will start somewhere in here. Definitely going to do some half hitched knots. So you don't want to over reinforce the components when you go, otherwise you won't be able to join them together. I think I've done it just enough. And I am going to weave through until I'm coming out top hole of this super duo here. Picking up one size 11 bead, pick up your next component, and then we're going into the corresponding top hole of the super duo on this component. Just do make sure your components are up the right way. You don't want the back of the cabochons facing up. So then we are going to weave around the outside of this component. And if you wanted to make that pendant, you would continue on this edge, but we are going to weave through to the next corner. It's worth taking your time to do this. Okay. Couple more beads. And this is where our next component's going to be. So we're going to join it all along one edge. Don't forget that size 11 seed bead. Go into the super duo. And just drop them down like this, and then you'll be able to see exactly where you're going. Okay, so we're just hopping across to this super duo, and then we'll be adding the next one here. So take your time, lay them on your bead mat, and figure out where the next one goes. Don't forget the joining size 11 seed bead in between. It just provides a little bit of space between the components, and makes them sit a lot better. Okay, so they will want to flip over until we go and join the other side, but you can still lay them down. Okay, so our next component is going to be here, so we need to weave around this corner. Here we are, we're over at this super duo now. Pick up your 11 and then the next component. Weave through. Okay, so it's coming together. Our next component is going to be added here, so we're in the right place already. So every other component you have to weave along a whole side, and then the alternating component you just weave through a couple of beads. So just keep that in mind, but if you lay it down on the bead mat, you'll easily be able to see where the joins are. We are going to come back and attach the clasp separately. So what I'm going to do is weave right around this end component. We're aiming to get to this corner to join these two together. So keep moving a bit further around. Now, these two whole cabochons are actually coated, so I pay particular attention to not scratching them with my needle. They are pretty durable, the coating, but if you scratch it with a needle, it opens up a little mark that can gradually wear away, so just be careful of that. Okay, joining over on this side now. Picked up my 11 and they're going to sit together like that. So you can see that adding the size 11 beads just provides a little bit of extra space. Okay, now we're joining the next one, and I'm not worried about it pulling out because as we work through, we'll just pull it tighter and it will snug up. Just keep looking at your components all the time because they're only attached on one side, they keep flipping over. You don't want to have it twisted and do something weird, so make sure the round sides of the cabochons are always pointing up. Coming out of the super duo, ready to add the next size 11 in to connect to this super duo. Flip this over, lay it down. Is that right? Yes. Add your size 11. Okay, there we have our bracelet so far. I'm going to leave this attached because I need to make a few more components. So I'm going to do that, join them all up, then I'll be back and we'll discuss clasp options. So let's take a look at these two different versions in a close-up detail and see where the variations are. Because if you've got some 2-hole cabochons or you're going to purchase them, you would make this version. If you've got some tips already or you want to purchase some of our limited stock we have left, you can do this version. Okay. Making the individual components work in exactly the same way. It's how you join them that is slightly different. So when you are adding the fire polished beads around the edge to join it, on the version with the tip beads, you are just adding the 4mm fire polish between these two super duos. Okay. When you are adding it on this version, you will need a 15 on either side of this 4mm fire polish as you join them. And that just spaces it out a little bit. Okay. You need a slightly more relaxed tension with this as well so it doesn't bunch up, which I'm hoping mine will relax a little bit and just sit into place much nicer. I think both versions are really lovely and they work up quite quickly as well, so you will have a bracelet in no time. Now, I think this is a good time to address the topic of clasps. With this new version, I decided to add a 2-hole cabochon as a bead and then make a simple loop to slip over it. Now, this works as long as you've got some weight pulling them apart, and as long as your loop of beads is not too big, it's not going to drop out. So just make sure of that if you're going for this clasp option. This is how I attached the 2-hole cabochon on this side. Picked up 3 beads actually through this hole. Picked up 3 more beads back through the second hole of the cabochon, 1 more bead, and then back through the first 2. So as always with clasps, weave them in many times to secure them. And on the other side, I created a loop of beads. And the number of beads in this loop, excluding the stalk of 2 beads, is 17 beads. Okay, so that's one idea for a clasp. A second idea, which is what I used on this original bracelet, and do keep in mind that the ends do join in not a straight fashion like this. that it's slightly on that angle. This is a bead slide clasp, and I've made 2 rows of square stitch and attached the bracelet to the edge of the square stitch at appropriate points. So 2 on this end, 2 on this end. Okay, it's quite a nice finish. I think this is one of my favourite clasps. I have also used a regular slide clasp on this version, but what I did do, I found some matching size 15s to add the clasp. You just have to find the appropriate places to join in your clasp because it's not evenly spaced along. If you just have a little go, see what looks good, and then add the loops of beads. Okay. I did use the same method on this original one, and I used size 11 seed beads, but I think it just looks a little bit less refined, I should say. Okay, but you certainly can use the size 11 seed beads that you've used in the bracelet. Okay. So all of these colorways have been set up as a list of products on the website, so they're not a kit, but you can purchase the individual colors that have been used in all of these samples to make your own version of this bracelet. Of course, you can choose a wide range of other colors. You might already have some of these beads, or you might want to buy some chip beads or some 2-hole cabochons and have a play around and see which colors you come up with. I do hope you enjoy making this bracelet. If you've learned something on this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed, please consider doing so. I'm going to update this bracelet, take off this clasp and replace it with this clasp here. So this is a bead slide clasp, and I think it's a much nicer finish. I've never really liked the way that these loops of beads fit on this clasp, and so I'm going to upgrade it, and I'll show you how. Here is my bead slide clasp ready to go. So first off, it has to be done. Scissors. Just cut it off. Now, I will try and pull out as much thread as I can, because I don't want all of these holes filled with thread where I'm going to add the new clasp. Don't think I can. No, if I just keep wiggling it. Okay, hasn't affected the whole structure of it, so I'm going to move those beads away. Tidy up this end. Of course, if you use the right clasp to start with, you can just follow on from the step in a minute. Now I'll do that again with the other end, but firstly let's open our Elegant Elements bead slide clasp, and this is an 18mm smooth Elegant Elements, so really nice quality, German made, very nice, and it's just the right size for this. So this is going to sit sideways on this. So not your typical bracelet. Now the way we add this clasp on is that we are going to do 2 rows of square stitch. So I'm going to kick off doing that right now. Let's move this out of the way a little bit. Picking up 2 beads, forming them into a circle, and we want them sitting side by side like this. And then we're going to pick up 2 more and stack them on top. And then we're going to keep repeating that. I'm using size 11 seed beads. And what is going to happen is that one of these rows of beads is going to slide in here like this. Okay, so we need to do the length of this bar. So let's keep going. I think that's about the right length. We definitely don't want it too long. I think it will compress a little bit as we push it in. So I'm going to wiggle this in. If you find this hard, and sometimes occasionally it will be a bit tricky to get in, this slit here, you'll just need to open it up a very tiny fraction. But if you can avoid doing that, just persist with pushing it in, it is better. This one went in fairly easily, and it's the perfect length. Just trying to get this to focus. Here we are, it's the perfect length. Now the next thing to do is close these lugs on each end, and I usually use a pair of pliers. Let me just reach for these, and I start easing it over like this, and then I get the end of the plier and I squeeze it. Let's make sure those stay in. I squeeze it close like that. Okay. You should also do the other end as well. And weave off this thread too. And that completely secures one end of the beads in, leaving the other end, or the side rather, exposed for you to choose your joining points along here. Okay. So let's choose where we are going to do that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back one bead and do a knot around the thread, and so I can turn back in the other direction and start beading. So I think I am going to maybe go into this super duo at one point because it seems to be lined up quite nicely. So I'll go through the other hole of the super duo and then maybe through this seed bead. And then decide where to go in, which bead. I think it's naturally wanting me to go in this bead here. And if these beads are a bit too tight to get your nail in, just put your nail in to separate them a fraction, and that will make it easier. Okay, so you can see it's already looking pretty neat. So let's think about what the next position will be to join. Let's see if we can go through this big tip bead. So I'm keep turning it back and forth to get a better view at it. And then into, I think it's this bead. And then I'm going to go into the seed bead, I think. And I might do what I did on the other side, go into the super duo as well, and then back out the other hole of the super duo. There we are, it's looking pretty neat. Let's go into maybe these last two beads. Okay, so now we need to pull it tight because it keeps pulling open. So that's the effect that I'm after, a nice tight, really close connection there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around using that knot, turn again and go back and reinforce that, and then weave in the threads, and then I will do it on the other end, and then I'll come back and show you the end result. So here we are, finished. It really didn't take too long at all to attach both sides of this clasp, and it's sort of like it's not an invisible join, but it's seamless. This is my preferred option for joining this bracelet indeed. Okay, so we've got this version here, which is using tip beads, and these are like a bronzy colour with the lava red O beads, the fire polished, and the super duos. Then we've got this one using the same clasp. This one uses the tip beads. I think that's the pastel bordeaux with the green super duos and the cream O beads, and also fire polished. And then we've got the original version of this tealy colour using turquoises and brass, and I've kept this clasp on it, but I did redo it and I've done it using size 15s in a vaguely matching colour, so I don't really like it as much, but if you want a cheaper option you can use that. This also uses the tip beads. And then we've got my latest updated version of this bracelet, and instead of using tip beads, this uses 2-hole cabochons. Okay. The clasp on this is looks like a bead, but it's actually the 2-hole cabochon as well. You can see it's flat on the back. So that's another alternative for a clasp, having a loop of beads and a bead clasp. So there is only one difference between making this one and this one, okay? And that is when you're joining the components together along the edges. If you're using tip beads, you just add the fire polish between the super duos. When you are using these 2-hole cabochons, which are slightly smaller, it pulls the super duos apart a little bit more, and so I've used a size 15 either side of the 4mm. I think you need a slightly more relaxed tension with this as well, because it's just a little bit tighter overall. Maybe that's just because it's freshly beaded. These have had time to relax a little bit more. This one's a little bit stiffer, and I think it just needs a bit of time to relax. But do watch your tension and don't pull the components too tight on this. Okay. So lots of options to choose to make your Pohori bracelet. We do have all of these colorways set up as not kits, but collections of products on the website. So I'll pop the link to those collections below, and you can shop some or all of the components. We're doing this because you might already have some tip beads in your stash that you don't know how to use. Okay, so you can use those. You can perhaps purchase some O beads and super duos if you don't have those, or vice versa. So it's a very flexible way to enable you to make this bracelet. We have limited supplies of tip beads left, but we have quite a colour range of the 2-hole cabochons left. So this is my reinvented and updated Pohori bracelet. I've overhauled some of the clasps, and I've redesigned it with some new beads. Sometimes really good to visit an older design and give it a fresh makeover. I hope you enjoy making it, and I would love to see you put your photos of whatever you make in our Cranberry Beadalong and customers Facebook group. If you found this video useful, please consider subscribing and giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. It will enable me to keep making more fresh videos for you.